Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Higgins, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor Greg Adams of the Covenant Life Baptist Church in Kennedale. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Thank you.
After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let's pray. Father, we come into your presence because as humans we're not sufficient for the moment. Lord, I pray that you grant this court wisdom today. You've promised it in times of difficulty if we ask you and believe that you'll give it to us, and you'll give it to us liberally. So, Father, we pray for your wisdom, and Lord, we pray for your protection upon this court. Lord, protect them from the temptations that come with having authority and power. And Lord, we also ask that you would grant them your grace. Lord, we all have difficulties and problems and things that weigh heavy on our hearts and on our minds. Father, I pray you give them your grace today. And Lord, just encourage and comfort them in anything that may be weighing upon their hearts today. Lord, we thank you for all the blessings that you've given us. We pray your blessings upon this court, upon all those who work and serve this county. And Lord, we thank you for the gift of life today. And most importantly, we're thankful for the gift of your Son. For we pray these things in Christ's name through the Spirit. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you, good Pastor.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Commissioner Allen, it's always great to see you.
Thank you. GK, it's good to be back in person.
So we have one agenda announcement, then we want to talk about how we're going to alter the different items that come to the court today. The first one is we do have a revised court communication as it relates to the purchasing department. I need to get my glasses. This will be item 8H1, relates to the sale of recycled paper. There's a revised court communication in your red folder this morning and also in the electronic court book. Second of all, we're going to take some items out of order this morning. We'll first have, Judge, I think that you have an employee recognition, which we'll do first, and then once we finish that and get into the administrator section, we're going to go ahead and move to the briefing agenda. We have a presentation by Dr. Gino Navini from TCC, and then we'll take that presentation first. We'll then follow it by a presentation by Mr. Tanasia, and as it relates to the weekly update on health-related issues, and then we'll proceed through the rest of the agenda. It's my understanding that we do have refreshments in the back because Judge Whitley now is turned 70 years old, and is,
Not quite, but I'm
so I noticed that the donuts were a little softer, so you can kind of gum them a little bit.
That's right. Gum them versus eating them.
So anyway, happy birthday, Your Honor.
I appreciate that. Happy birthday, Glenn. Thank you very much.
Hopefully we're not going to sing happy birthday because that will ruin the whole
You don't want
day.
to hear me sing, that's for sure.
I've issued an order against singing, and since I can issue all kinds of orders this year, it's just one more.
Stay in your lane, Judge.
Stay in my lane. I understand.
That part.
Thank you, Your Honor. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting, November the 24th.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we have a couple of, I have a congratulatory proclamation for the Very Reverend Daniel Paul Kelly in recognition of his service to the community. He has, I think I believe it's his 25th year. I read this and now I've forgotten it. Yes, 25th year. And so I will move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Well, once again, we are at our first meeting in December, and we're not able still to do the employee recognition. And I can't tell you how much I have missed having the opportunity to recognize the folks from Tarrant County and to communicate and to talk with them. We're going to get back to it, and if we have to do it every week in 2021, when we get ready to start back, we'll do it every week, because I cannot tell you how much I appreciate and am proud of the folks in Tarrant County day in and day out for the jobs that they do, especially during this time.
Good morning.
That we've had. Go ahead. They're back there.
Because of the COVID-19 virus, we have, and the restrictions that it's placed upon our meetings, I'm sorry to say that we're going to have to postpone our employee recognition. That is one of my favorite times of the month, and so I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to do that this month, but I promise you that when everything gets back to normal, or whatever our new normal is, we'll begin those again, and we'll make up for those meetings and for those months that we've had to miss. Again, I want to thank you personally for what you do for Tarrant County, especially during this time when we've had to face the challenges of the COVID-19 virus. Our employees have always stood up for the test, and you've done exactly the same thing during this time frame. You're what makes Tarrant County such a great place to live, to work, and to raise our family. Again, thank you very much, and I look forward to getting back to our routine of being able to recognize our valued employees on that first Tuesday of every month. Thank you. Good morning. Because of the COVID-19 virus, we have, and the
because it's your birthday.
Because it's 2020. Here are the folks that are celebrating their various anniversaries. There's the 5-year employees. There's 10. You can see our 15, 20, and 25, and 35. I see
Tracy.
Tracy's here today. She must have a little presentation
And
for us.
Rob.
I guess
Hey,
because you're
Tracy.
celebrating 35 years, we'll treat you nicely, maybe. Robin Worthy. Whoa, where's Robin?
She's on vacation today, but I think she's watching.
She's on vacation. If she is on vacation and she's watching the court, then we really need to help her get a life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know, but we really, really do appreciate everyone and their effort, and I mean it when I say that I've had a chance to visit many of the counties across this country, and we take for granted the employees that we have here in Tarrant County and the job they do. So, again, thank you very much, and I'll move that we receive and file the employee recognition.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We're getting close to wrapping up our United Way campaign. Just a little bit of statistics. My office this year has gone over 10,000, so Mr. Manius, you usually are the ones that come the closest, but you'll never get there this year, so I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
But y'all could, you can always beat that challenge.
Oh, I have a feeling.
You got a whole lot more people than I got.
Who's shaving your head?
Well, that ain't happening unless y'all get on the ball here in the last week. The auction that we did raised right just a hair under 10,000. So each one of us, as the court, got credit for about $1,987. We've had other fundraising events, but to this point, as best we can tell, we are about $13,963 away from last year's goal, which was $77,000. And in order to shave my head, you're going to have to raise about you're have to raise $59,000. Yeah, see, she doesn't want to see me shaved either. And so she's screaming, please don't do that. But again, if all your departments, you've got 1 week now, as far as the pledges go, you now have to fill out the hard forms. You have to fill out a card in order to do that versus the online portal. The online portal shut down Friday. But there's still that opportunity. And, your employees wouldn't, if they just gave $1 a week or $52 a year, that'd be $2 a paycheck. I think you could shave my head.
I can do that.
But everybody's going to have to do it in order to make that happen. And I think my hair is safe in place.
I think there's some other people want to do something else with your head.
Well, the only thing they're going to get to do is shave it. Now, see, if GK was doing it, he wouldn't have much to shave. But
This is my summer cut.
well, it looked the same as last winter, too. So anyway, this is the last, we really need to begin wrapping this up. So please, if you've not made your pledge, please do that. And
So does the $1,900 that you got from the auction that everybody else participated in, is that part of the $10,000?
No. Do you want me to explain that to you?
No, I may have to audit it, but
Feel free. So we're okay. And I know one thing. I will not be buying lunch for anybody here on the court. I feel quite certain.
Oh, okay.
So, I'll take that challenge. Y'all just go right ahead.
Okay. I do have a few announcements, sorry.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you. Well, I'll start with some business. Of course, today is Election Day for the runoff, and there are a number of local local elections that have races, and particularly in Precinct 2, as I've shared before, there is a runoff election for the mayor of Mansfield, as well as a city council race there, and for Mansfield ISD Board of Trustees, and then also for the city of Arlington. So polls open at 7 a.m. today. They close at 7 p.m. today, so please make sure that if you live in, of course, there are other races throughout the county, but if you have one of those races on your ballot, please do go ahead and make your voice heard. I think as of yesterday or this morning that less than 5% of folks had turned out for that. So we want to make sure that you make your voice heard in that election. Second is the great work that Public Health has done with others to expand access to flu vaccines for the uninsured, a partnership with Kroger, Albertsons, Tom Thumb throughout the county. If you are uninsured, you can go there to get a flu shot. You can also go to Public Health, to JPS clinics, and to the federally qualified health centers, which there are 3 in Tarrant County. Lastly, tomorrow is the last day to apply for assistance through our rental assistance program. You all have probably heard ads on the radio, on streaming radio, the news, you name it. There's been a great team of folks to work on this program, and so we want to make sure that Tarrant County residents for those who are renting their housing, that they have the support that they need to stay in their homes. Lastly, and this is more on a personal note, I just want to thank everybody for their well wishes and support. It's so good to be back in person. I did have major, thank you. As some of you know, that I did have to undergo major surgery July 27th earlier this year. And I had a few setbacks in my recovery, but had a great medical team and the support of my family and, of course, of the county team and the Precinct 2 team. I do still have some, I had some nerve damage as a result of some of the reasons why I had to have the surgery, and then as a result of the surgery. And so sometimes sitting for very long causes me tremendous pain. I have sciatic nerve issues. So that's why it took me so long to get back, because I wanted to be sure that I could make it through most, if not all, of a meeting in person. But in the interest of self-care and listening to my body, if I do have to get up during a court meeting and walk around and stretch and to try to manage my pain, then that's where I am. But I'm still very much paying attention, and I'm here. And then also, I had planned to be back in person a few weeks ago, but in the process of caring for one of my family members who I'm a primary caregiver for, I was exposed to COVID, and so with the direction of public health, I was presumed a probable COVID case, and so I had to quarantine. Thankfully, my family is healthy. I do have 2 family members, though, that are in the hospital. And so, obviously, I just want to encourage everyone to continue taking care of yourselves and your family. I know it can be tremendously stressful to be in the hospital without being able to see your family. I certainly encountered that. And certainly, if you have members of your family who are in the hospital and you're unable to see them, or any of the other reasons that they are in a group setting, that you're not able to see them. So my heart goes out to everyone who life continues to go on, the good and the bad, and we're still dealing with COVID. So I hear you, I see you, I understand you, and I can certainly feel that stress. And I do just, again, my heart goes out to everybody every single person is dealing with this pandemic in one way or another. So that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else have any announcements at this time?
I just want to welcome back Commissioner Allen. This is the first chance we've had to eyeball you in person, and that is a very important process. Seeing you on the screen, we can intuit that you're okay, but being able to lay eyes on you gives us more confidence in our judgment that you are indeed okay.
Very good.
And I thank God for you and for watching over you during your journey and bringing you back to us safe.
Thank you.
And healed.
Yeah, that part.
And ready to go.
That's right. Watch out. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome back. And happy birthday, Judge. It's the correct number is 68, y'all.
That's right. That is right. It is that. Thank you all. Anything else from the court members? Okay, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor,
Okay. Mr.
Yes.
Mingus?
Thank you, Your Honor. We can now go to the briefing section of the agenda, and we're going to have 2 presentations. The first presentation is an update on the state of the college, which is Tarrant County College. We're going to ask Dr. Gino Navini to come forward. He is the chancellor of TCC, a good friend of all of ours, and welcome.
Good morning, Jay.
Good morning.
Hi.
Thank you, GK.
Good morning, Chancellor.
Judge, Commissioners, thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and I also want to thank you for your individual support of the college over the times. Each of you have done so since my tenure here, and I greatly appreciate that. And I certainly want to call out Commissioner Fickus, who serves on our Tarrant County College Foundation Board, for him sharing his talent and his treasure on that foundation. So don't worry, this is not long. We see the state of the college. You you hear, oh, this is going to be a long time. No, this is really just going to be a general update of where we are, certainly during this time, and how we're handling that, as the current activity that's going on at the college, as well as the future as we see it, and how we think that we need to respond to that. And we've been certainly interested in any of your thoughts related to that, to the reality that we see, and how we're going to attempt to respond to that. So with that, let me get right into this. Back in March 13th, I think it was exact, we all encountered something quite interesting, and immediately the college mobilized, and took us a little while to put our head around, if you will, how to respond, as things were changing almost daily, and we had 50-some thousand students enrolled, along with 7,500 employees, and how do we go about doing business? And we still live by under the umbrella of academic continuity as well as safety, and it was safety first, if you will. And so how do we keep all of our constituents safe and continue in our mission? And so since that time, we've been primarily online. There are some courses that are in face-to-face, those that absolutely have to be face-to-face, things like some of the healthcare clinics and welding and automotive and culinary and some programs like that. The campuses remain open, although there's not many people on those campuses. People are working from home, but we do continue to provide all full services to our community. We'll maintain and retain this process through spring. We feel that likely there needs to be a vaccine out a while in order for us to be able to feel safe and coming back. We have 4 million square feet. We have a lot of people walking through our doors. It's virtually a very impossible, if you will, to be safe today in the environment that we have. So we continue to remain, if you will, in an online work from home environment. We've had slight enrollment decline, like many institutions have through the country, and for some of those typical answers. We had 58,000 students walk out the door in March that we didn't get a chance to enroll for the fall. Obviously, that's one. We have a very sophisticated, hands-on, almost hand-holding process for recent high school graduates to engage in college, to help them through the process, particularly the financial aid process. That was all compromised, and we had to move all that online, as did other institutions. We're off about 5.5% this fall. That's not bad considering, it's not a good thing, but it's not bad considering nationwide you'll hear data anywhere from 9 to 19% in the community college sector. Some community colleges off as much as 50, 60% because they serve populations that they can't serve any longer, prison populations or senior populations and such. So we see ourselves as very fortunate to be able to continue to offer as we have offered. Been a number of challenges, certainly. Obviously, health being one of them, as well as economic. But what we're finding out now with our students as we talk to them constantly, it's really becoming much more socially. Their social infrastructure and their social networks, child care and things of that nature, have really caused them difficulty in being able to continue in college. As well as we found out from a lens of how students are prepared, we hear more and more back about students having difficulty with time management and really having difficulty navigating courses to discipline themselves to do so. So that it helps inform us. As we find these things out, we provide webinars, we in-service for our faculty and staff to deal with students. So it's almost like we're treating them as we go along in terms of the needs they have in order to navigate college during this difficult time. Interesting, though, we've had an increase in enrollment in graduates over the last few years, 10% each year. We went from 7,700 to 8,200 to 8,800 this past May. Now, obviously, they didn't walk across the stage, but they did get their degrees. With enrollment somewhat, not flat, increased just a little bit, that gives us great pride because that tells us more and more students are succeeding proportionally. So when you can increase in graduation rates 10, 11% every year in our sector, that's quite good. So we're very, very proud of that. So one thing I think that you would desire some form of update on is where we are related to what we're spending a lot of time on now is at our bond program. Last November, seems a long time ago, the voters approved an $825 million bond proposition, and we are moving forward with that. And just for your reference standpoint, let me give you an overview of what that looks like. We issued bonds in June at 1.7% interest rate. We are very pleased with that. We had anticipated, from what we anticipated, this will save us roughly $44 million in debt service over the life of those bonds, for what what we anticipated to what we're actually paying. So we're very pleased with that. We've begun our projects. To organize our projects, we're into 4 buckets. One bucket is the Northwest Campus. Northwest Campus was built for 5,000 students. It has 10,000 students. Obviously, a big crunch there. The Northwest, or the winds of Northwest County have not been kind to that campus and those buildings, and therefore they need some attention. So we'll be taking down a few buildings and building a few buildings and creating more square footage to deal with the growth. The second is the Southeast Campus, another campus that was built for 5,000 students that now has close to 13,000 students. And when it is in session, it is literally wall to wall, walking down the corridor there. So to address the growth there, there's a big bucket in the Southeast for the Southeast Campus. Not to ignore the other campuses, they're all getting work done, but they're not in the same predicament as the Northwest and the Southeast. We have a big mechanical, electrical, plumbing bucket. And obviously the infrastructure with many of the campuses now 50 and almost 60 years old, you can see the necessity for that. The bucket we're probably most excited about and really speaks to the future and really speaks to continuing to meet students' needs as those needs change. We started a planning process when I arrived around why are we here. That produced 3 very simple goals. We're here as one college, 6 campuses, 1 college. We're here to be student ready. We're also here to serve the community. And then we asked ourselves, what do we need to do in order to deliver on that? And that yielded some principles, we call them 8 things. I'm not going to go into them. But those things are guiding our planning process, our facilities planning, our space planning, our people planning, our technology planning, and how we serve students. So that we do have some rhyme and reason behind the work that we're doing, if you will. So that's some of where we are with the bond right now. I do want to spend a little bit of attention is what we see the reality is and how we're responding to that. Even before this pandemic, there are a number of jobs in this country still available, 7 million or so to be exact. But the interesting piece of those 7 millions is that they're available that we have people trained for. And there's roughly 300,000 of those jobs right here in the Metroplex. And so the reality is this, as you look at the marketplace, the workplace today, what is necessary to fill those jobs? And when you dig into it, and you'll see national data, and I work with National Skills Council, and we produced our report back in April, of the 50 highest demand jobs in this country, the ones that are most in demand, the most opportunity that there is. Only 6 of them require a bachelor's degree or better. 44 of them require something more than high school, but less than a bachelor's degree. Well, that's where we fall in. So that's not a commercial. That's the reality. And so the reality today is not necessarily about a degree. It's really about competency, certifications, licensures. Things change, particularly in the technological world, constantly. And the ability to address that is not necessarily through the old formal education of a credit hour and a semester and a degree and such. And so that's a real reality, and it is increasing pace, if you will, in terms of that being the reality, and we want to respond to that. From a local flavor, about 2 months ago, we participated with Hillwood and up at Alliance on a job fair. It was virtual. There was some place in face, but there was 2,000 jobs on the docket that were available. That job fair was advertising. About 80% of them fell into the bucket that I'm talking about. Something more than high school, but less than a bachelor's degree. Only a handful of those jobs were filled. So we have an issue here of preparing the workforce for the jobs that are available with the skill sets, providing them the skill sets to do those jobs. I mean, when I was in school, I used to like the tests that had matching on it because I knew there was an answer. I just had to find the 2, right? So we got people that need jobs. We got jobs. What's the education and training to do so? And so that's how very simplistically we are looking at that. And we've continued to add programs in order to address that. Another part of the reality that we talk a lot about and really spending more and more attention on. I just talk really more about the traditional academic, technical education and such, but really how we work with our community. You're going to hear from Maddie Parker in a couple of weeks or so around T3 at Tarrant to and through, with partnership with Rainwater, the college, as well as Fort Worth ISD. So I'm not going to get in detail with it other than to say it's an intentful, purposeful action to prepare high school students to be ready for college so they don't need developmental education. And I'll let Maddie, I won't steal her thunder for you to hear that directly from her. We will be launching a campaign in the coming months. We've been sitting on it for about 15 months. And the campaign speaks to around our relationship and working directly with business. And it's called TCC Means Business. And so we've made a concerted effort over the last 14 months or so. COVID has slowed it down tremendously to build another entity within our organization. And that entity will serve the corporate services environment. And we will do so throughout the whole county, but the center, if you will be up at Alliance at the campus that we have up at the Alliance Airport. And we have hired a staff, if you will, put together an entity that really will work directly with assessing business needs, their needs from C-suite all the way down to the shop floor, if you will, and providing programs and services for the business. And so it's our Corporate Learning and Development Center, and it will open up this coming spring. Lastly, I want to talk about is we do a number of programs for the community in which speaks to those that are most underserved, those without even adults without even a high school diploma. We have 12 zip codes in this county where at least 25% of the adults do not even have a high school diploma. And if we don't do things like with T3 and all, that population is going to grow. Well, we've provided programs and services, the adult basic education, the adult language training, the GED and such. We are now initiating those things under a different strategy, if you will, and going directly into those community centers, those churches, to meet those people where they're at, to address those needs of the community as well. So we're trying to run the gamut, if you will, from we do a lot of college for kids stuff all the way to senior stuff and everything in between. But we want to be more intentional and purposeful. And one thing that I'll close with related to that, we've talked a little bit about this, is meeting people where they're at and serving the community. I know, Robert at the hospital sees a lot of the same patients over and over again. And so how do we provide services to that, educational services to that population? How do you provide services to the incarcerated, whether they're in or when they're coming out? And we really be interested in working with JPS and with the county as well, are related to those particular populations and how we might be able to provide more and more services and reach deeper into our community. So I'll stop there. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. As you're thinking about questions, GK said I couldn't come unless I told a joke. I want the court to be assured that GK is a much better county manager than he is golfer. So rest assured, where his talents are here, not on the golf course. But I would ask at least one of you to teach him how to count past 4. Because what'd you get, GK? 4. So those that you aren't golfers,
it was a par 5.
Par 5, yeah. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Wait a minute.
You can't ask any questions.
His pencil has always had an eraser on it, so we understand that.
And he's never caught a fish smaller than that.
Sometimes we use those for bait.
Yeah.
Dr. Giovannini.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask where we are in the process of hiring a new president for the South Campus.
Mm-hmm. So Dr. Peter Jordan, the president of the South Campus, made a personal decision to return back east to be closer to his family for some reasons or somewhat around healthcare, but also the difficulty he had traveling from here up to New York to see his family. And so he had an intent of doing such. It just sped up, and he decided to leave us in October, and we certainly wish him well and are in constant contact with him. So we've initiated a search, and we're moving quickly because I'm serving as the interim president of South, and I'm probably not doing a very good job, but so we want to move really, really quick. But we engaged a firm that we're happy with, and we've used them before. And right now, they're in the process of vetting the candidates that have, right as I speak, that have applied for that position. And we'll go through a process that will whittle that down. It'll involve the community. It's a little more difficult, if you will, in terms of the situation that we're in, but we will have an opportunity for the community to meet the candidates, and I hope this will conclude by mid-February.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for being here and for the comprehensive update. I know you shared some about, obviously, that there was just a slight dip in enrollment, but that, folks are still graduating year over year. You all are seeing an increase. I don't want to assume that I know or understand what some of the barriers may be for students right now. So what's your knowledge of what some of the barriers are?
more and more it's becoming obvious it's that the social network and the social platforms that they have to help support them or have eroded or are not there or have been interrupted. So that's more and more. Another would be the applying for financial aid. The FAFSA form is very challenging. Interesting, just yesterday I saw where the feds have an initiative to make that much more simpler. But that's been nationwide too. So that issue. So what we see, Commissioner Allen, is specifically those two things to highlight. The social networking, which says, school's hard to go to in normal times. It's even harder now. Okay, and then second, how do they negotiate the process? We lost, not only lose, but we are one of our bigger dips in the enrollment were those right out of high school students who did not negotiate the process in person, and we had virtual processes to do, but again, it was all new at the time, and of course we're much better at it today.
Very good. Okay, that's helpful. I appreciate that. And I did just want to say I always enjoy working with Dr. Coppola. And, of course, last fall and then earlier this year, right before COVID hit, we hosted toiletry drives and did drop off those goods at the Southeast campus location to help students. But this gives us a better idea of some more targeted efforts we can partner on. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will mention we're doing a number of activities. We never did so many drive-through activities as we're doing now for various reasons to serve the community at all of our campuses.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much, folks, and have a happy holiday. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care, GK.
Sir.
I have a motion to receive and file the briefing item.
So moved.
Did you second?
Oh, second. Sorry. Never mind.
Please vote. Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Johnson, are you there?
He stepped away just a second.
Stepped away. Okay. Motion passes 4-1. Or 4 with 1 abstention.
So now we're going to go ahead and move to the other briefing item. This is briefing item 11A.
Okay, GK, before we go into that, I'm going to ask one favor. Nicole, would you like to speak now? Because I know you're managing triplets back there.
Sure, if you're ready for me.
Come on up. They have been very good.
Thank you. I'm trying with the training. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole McGowan. I am a local Tarrant County resident. I'm also a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas, and I practice in Mansfield, which is also in Tarrant County. I want to start just by saying thank you to each of you for your service to us as your constituents, as your community. Can you hear me?
I'm trying.
Okay. I've been told often that I speak too softly, so I will try to enunciate. So as a citizen that you all represent, I want to let you all know my stance and point of view regarding mask mandates as a violation of religious freedom. Our forefathers founded this country on the basis of religious freedom, the experiment that is America, a constitutional republic, if we can keep it, as Ben Franklin said, required individual morality in order to be successful, an individual's intrinsic desire for the common good, not a forced ideology that requires individuals to give or do for the common good, which would be socialism. But instead, a hope and encouragement that individuals would value and recognize the need to willfully and joyfully care for others and submit to the laws of the land for the common good, and ultimately in submission to God. The Bible clearly explains the role of government is to restrain evil, promote good, and punish the wrongdoer. And so one question I implore you all to ponder is the unmasked individual a wrongdoer needing to be punished, or is the unmasked individual evil needing to be restrained? I had the privilege of taking part in a Zoom meeting with Judge Whitley regarding this topic recently. And as was discussed in that meeting, masks have long been used and revered in spiritual practices and ceremonies all across the world, in different civilizations and time periods. As it pertains to religion, masks are not neutral. there is a very significant spiritual and religious component to mask wearing. Furthermore, we've all seen the anecdotal evidence of the effects that masks have on interpersonal connection. We can no longer greet one another with a smile, and when we do try to speak, our voices are often muffled and oftentimes incoherent. It's easier to simply be quiet. As followers of Christ, we are commanded to speak gently and respectfully, but to speak the truths of the gospel, to speak love and encouragement in truth. And we're being silenced, gradually, yes, but we cannot deny that it is happening. At the beginning of this pandemic, I was completely okay with wearing a mask. There were so many unknowns regarding COVID-19, and I wanted to do my part to flatten the curve. However, that has turned into 9 months now with no end in sight. And what I have seen transpire is individual citizens now policing one another to socially enforce the mask mandate because they believe a narrative that the unmasked mother of two at the grocery store poses a threat to their life, when they are far more likely to die on the drive home from the grocery store.
You have 3 minutes to try to begin wrapping it up.
Those of us who have a religious conviction against masks are now viewed as murderers. It sounds incredulous, but it's the truth. I don't think anyone in this room can deny the fact that that narrative is very much present in Tarrant County. I'd like to point out the fact that prior to March 2020, research on mask effectiveness against virus particles completely contradicts the information and practices now being espoused from our leaders as scientific fact. In closing, I'd like to share that as a mental health practitioner licensed in the state of Texas, as a professional counselor, part of my clinical research has been on the placebo effect and psychosomatic symptoms. As a result, as I observe what is taking place around me personally and in my practice, I can confidently say that a mask mandate is very much a placebo effect. Yes, COVID-19 is serious for some people, but mask mandates under a sweeping emergency order are not the answer. I implore you to consider this. I have supporting documents for every statement I've made here today, and I'd be happy to email them to you.
Thank you, Nicole. We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Ashley, I don't know if you wish, I don't think you're signed up to speak today. I just wanted to give you an opportunity because I understand sometimes, I mean, your kids have been fantastic. We appreciate it. And I just want to give you an opportunity to make your comments just on the happenstance that they might get a little tired of listening to this go on and on and on. So thank y'all for being here today, both of you. Now, Mr. Manius, if you'd like to continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, if we can go now to the second briefing item. This is item 11A. This is an update on the current and emerging health issues. Vinny is here to address the court at this time. Good morning.
Morning, Your Honor, members of the court. Glad to see you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So we'll quickly breeze through. Unfortunately, I have a little bit longer presentation today because of the vaccine update in there. But let's start with the situational awareness. If I can get the slides to move. Help from the back, please. Next slide. There we go. Thank you. So, unfortunately, the hospitalization trend continues upward in Tarrant County. The most recent numbers show that Tarrant County hospitals are getting fuller. Almost 20% of the bed capacity is being utilized by COVID. We have 18 ICU beds remaining, according to the latest report. So just for consideration, we're a county of almost 2.1 million people. 18 ICU beds remain. That's one traffic accident, a building fire, anything like that could take those out.
That's 18 out of a total of how many ICU?
I know you were going to ask that. We're at like 96% capacity, like 500-600 beds, I think. I'd have to go look at the exact number. Tarrant County is above 112,000 cases. Today we're adding another 900 and maybe 26 or something, 900 something cases today. We're approaching 900 deaths. I think we're going to add 13 deaths today to the total. I think the total is 899 is what I remember. TSAE, which is triggering the governor's orders, remains above 15%. So it had to be above 15% for a week before GA32 and GA31 could be triggered under the governor's orders. And then as soon as it did that, a day later, we actually trended lower. So I was getting a little optimistic. For a couple of days, we were below 15%. But then yesterday, we jumped back above. We're at 15.87%. And why that is important, as it took a week for the governor's order to take effect, you had to be above 15%. Similarly, to come out from those, you have to be consistently below the 15% for at least 7 days consecutive. And that consecutive trend has not been established. We've been below 2 days, and now we've peaked up above 15%. Another thing to remember, TSAE is a 19-county region. Tarrant County, unfortunately, one of the larger counties in there that's leading in hospitalizations. But even for the 19-county region, there are only 79 ICU beds that remain for all of that area. So hospital capacity is one issue. ICU bed capacity, I think, is an indicator that people are not paying attention to, but that is something very important. It can cause other issues within the hospital, from management of people that are critically ill. So that's that. Trends continue up. Hospitalizations, as you can see, has been up. We've surpassed the peak in July. Our current numbers on both charts are, not where we'd like to, we'd like to be in a downward trend, but unfortunately, there's no end in sight on the upward trend here. Next slide, please. We're stuck again. There we go. So case trends. So this one is the epidemiological curve on how we report cases, so the daily numbers that we update. And sometimes it doesn't tell the full story, but there's an important thing to remember here. We thought the July peak was rough. Look at what's happening now. Just the last weeks, the tall bar in the end, over 12,000 cases reported in 1 week. On the chart on the right, it just took us 6 days to add 10,000 cases. That's the fastest we've ever seen. If anybody had any doubt whether our county residents who all sacrificed and stayed home and did the right thing early on in the pandemic, and was it all in vain? No, look at the numbers. It took us 107 days to get through the first 10,000 cases because we were all doing the right thing. We were all doing all our part to bend that curve. Now that that's not possible, we're again paying a cost with, on 10,000 cases coming in 6 days. And that's just cases happening. I mean, with those folks, there's economic impact. Those folks are not able to go to work. They have contacts that are isolated and quarantined at home. They're not able to go to work. So there's a ripple impact in the community of having too many cases also, as is with other measures. So it's a balanced thing, we understand, but currently the situation is pretty tough. This is the epi curve that we follow more closely because it mimics how the outbreak actually is occurring in the community. And as you can see, we've had quite a few rough weeks. Last 4 or 5 weeks have been very, very tough for our community. There's thousands upon thousands of cases being added every week. Positivity rate is at 17%. So almost 1 in every 6 people that we're testing in Tarrant County are coming back positive. That's a lot of disease activity in Tarrant County. And I think I shared with y'all a report that comes right from the White House, goes to the governor's task force. They called out Tarrant County specifically. They said Tarrant County, El Paso, and Dallas are adding 38% of the cases for the state of Texas. So that's powerful just to have an observation from the White House task force like that we're part of that 40% of Texas. And then, of course, they had strong words about Texas needs to up their mitigation efforts to curb this outbreak. According to that report, hospitalizations across Texas are on an unsustainable path. So COVID-like illness trends, again, we've peaked very high. We're at about 8.8%, the highest we've seen. And then, we've heard that there's no end in sight, but there are positive things happening as well. Next slide, please. So the big news this past week has been the vaccine is coming. So if anybody was not able to connect the dots, why were we trying to play this balancing act, wear the mask, stay home when you can, limit public gatherings. This is not something that public health just cooked up to give people pain. Because I've heard that over and over and over again, that we're overreaching and we're asking our leaders to overreach. That is not the case. It is to find a balance to get our community to a place where we can have the tools to fight the pandemic. There's been a lot of comparisons drawn with the flu. I've read articles. Well, if public health had it their way, every flu season we'd be staying home. No, that is not true. We have therapeutics to fight the flu. We have vaccine to fight the flu. We were fighting this new virus with no tools. The only thing we had were these public health measures to stay at home and do our part so our community can get there without much damage. England did it just recently. They, stayed home. They got their cases low. Now they got vaccine. We're heading into vaccine with cases high. That means we got a tougher fight. But the vaccine is here. 2 major companies have their vaccine up for approval with the FDA. I believe they have a meeting on the 10th. So hopefully within the week we'll know whether these vaccines are approved. I fully expect approval. Hopefully it will be all good news. But the first one that we know is Pfizer. We've talked about it a little bit. It's a mRNA platform, and I won't bore you with the technical mumbo-jumbo, but it does require ultra-low freezers, which our county has, and several area hospitals have. So last Friday, you all heard that several area hospitals got their notification of first allocations. So that's a part of the pre-positioning process under the Operation Warp Speed. They will probably receive their vaccine sometimes next week, but they're not able to use it if the FDA doesn't approve. So it all hinges on FDA emergency use authorization, which, like I said, they're going to be talking this week, and hopefully there'll be a decision. And I'll show a slide with some timelines there. It is a 2-dose vaccine. So you take it on day 0, and then you wait 3 weeks. So 21 days later, there's a second dose. So state of Texas has that plan. I believe the original allocation to the state was 1.4 million doses. Currently, they're underway on the pre-allocation of the first half of that. My understanding is they're reserving the second half, so there's no issues with the second dose. So there's good planning on that aspect. The second vaccine that is in play is the Moderna vaccine. An interesting fact that I just found out yesterday, and that it kind of blew my mind, Moderna actually was the first mover. So when the genome of the virus was released in January, a Chinese scientist had put that on a worldwide scientific website to share technology. Moderna took 1 weekend to actually develop the blueprint and the vaccine to submit it for approval to their process for production. So that's how technology and our pharmaceutical industry can really mobilize to help us out in a pinch like this. And of course, you got to do all the studies and the clinical trials. It takes a time, that we took. But this is how fast those things can be done when everybody works towards a common goal. So this vaccine is just same technology, a minor difference. It, again, can be frozen for 6 months. There's talk about refrigeration, whether it can be refrigerated for 5 days or 30 days. I know my slide shows 30 days because that's the data that we've seen. But there's also concerns whether the FDA, EUA will allow for 30 days, so we'll just have to see. Hopefully that is the case because it allows for longer shelf life. The difference here, again, 2-dose vaccine. Take it on day 0, and 4 weeks later on day 28, you get the second dose. That one yet is not pre-positioning anywhere, not that I've heard in Texas. So we're going to just wait and see when that arrives. The big thing to remember is there's 2 vaccines, but you can't mix and match. So if you got the Pfizer vaccine, the second dose is going to be Pfizer. If you got the Moderna vaccine, the second dose is going to be Moderna. And with the vaccine comes a little vaccination card. So all of that will be recorded on the card. The person will have that. And later they will be able to go get that second dose as needed. So there's 2 other vaccines in play. I just want to kind of mention those. There's one from AstraZeneca. We've talked about it before. That's the European company. They've got a vaccine that's in clinical trials all across the globe. I think they're recruiting about 250 subjects here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So if there's anybody interested in participating in that vaccine trial, certainly they're welcome to do that. And the final one is still under study, under clinical trials, but we're kind of excited about it, the Janssen vaccine. Hopefully that one makes it through and gets its approval. It's a single dose. So it makes it very easy to give a single dose vaccine and not have to worry about coming back later for a second dose. So that's the interest there. So again, lots of technical information here, but you all heard both are almost 95% effective, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Currently, their EUAs are filed with the FDA. And here's sort of the timeline. The FDA group that decides on these is expected to meet on December 10th. If they approve and give the EUA, we expect that the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices will meet the following day to give their recommendations. And then by December 14th, I believe that they're going to be ready to actually start sending a lot of shipments for pre-positioning. And then if everything goes as expected, the week of December 16th, 17th timeframe, we expect the vaccine in arms. So the pre-positioning hospitals, I believe there are at least 8 or 9 in Tarrant County area. We got the first notice of about 18,525 doses being allocated. About 15,600 of those are going to 5 Fort Worth area hospitals. So outer part of the county got a little short on that, but that's okay. I'm sure we'll get another allocation here soon. They're expecting weekly allocations, so I'm sure that will be rectified. And then the way it's supposed to roll out is healthcare workers first, because they do provide life and death care in the hospital setting, and they do deal with a lot of COVID. But it also includes first responders, and then also long-term care facility residents and staff. Again, those are the high priority groups that were identified with ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. And even in Texas, we had a executive committee that the governor appointed that had a variety of folks on there, and their input was very similar. Next slide, please. Real quick, Moderna, even though we don't have an exact timeline, it is supposed to follow a very similar path. We're hoping that they get the EUA approved at the same meeting with the FDA, and then it will be pretty much right after the Pfizer vaccine. We expect that those doses are going to start trickling in. Next slide, please. Here's sort of just a shipment process. I know there have been some questions on how is it all going to be working. Currently, it's direct shipped from Pfizer, and there's I guess a company in the middle, McKesson, that is going to provide the ancillary supplies and the diluent and all of that sort of packaged up and delivered to the hospitals. And there's a lot of coordination happening at the state, and with the Operation Warp Speed, there's a unit that's coordinating that at the national level with multiple states that are participating in this effort. Next slide, please. Here's some of the Texas guiding principles. Again, these are in line with ACIP recommendations, so I'm expecting that if ACIP updates their guidelines, then these will be updated as well. But again, as you can see, very thoughtful, very orderly. We're going to try to protect the most vulnerable at first, because the vaccines are very limited in supply. And as ample vaccine supplies come into play, then other folks will get it. Current estimations are somewhere in February, March timeframe, there will be ample supplies. There's a phase called Phase 2, where they are going to be giving separate allocations to large national pharmacy chains like Walgreens, CVS, Walmart's, Kroger's, and so forth. And that's where we expect that it will be as widely available as the flu vaccine. You can pretty much go anywhere, get a COVID vaccine shot. So that's kind of the overview of what we have so far. Again, like I said, the first allocations were detailed out last week, and we do expect weekly allocations. I've had conversations. Public health is in line. We don't know when we'll receive our allocation, but when we do, we'll be ready to go and start immunizing first responders and others who are not in the hospital group. So we'll be working with them to get this effort underway. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Vinny, a couple of things. I know Commissioner Brooks also called a number of folks this weekend when we saw initially that JPS did not have anything. I want to thank Rick Merrill publicly.
Yes, sir.
They had a large supply, and we talked with the state, I think it's Garcia, and I was on a conference call with Robert and Rick where we asked Rick if he would be willing to share, and without even the least bit of hesitation, he said, I'll be glad to share whatever amount, that we set on, and I want to just again thank him publicly for that. We were assured that we would be in the second round of allocations ourselves, and so I feel very good. There was a lot of, why did this happen? Who said she said, pointing fingers. It was taken care of, and again, Rick stood up and didn't hesitate one bit in that process. The other thing that I would like to do, last week, Dr. Scribner from Fort Worth ISD sent a letter down to the governor asking that teachers be included in that first round group. I'm going to send a letter, and I've got a draft of that, I think, coming up right now, that I'd like to pass around to the court, and if the court would like for it to be something from the court, then we can all sign it. But, I believe very strongly if we're going to say we want kids back in schools, and we do, and if the state's going to insist that they be back in schools, then we need to make sure that the teachers are first in line to get them, because, quite honestly, I've had some of the nurses say that, we're not the front line, we're the last resort because we get to take care of them.
Yes.
The front line is all of us, and we need to all do our part. And I think one of the first things we can do is make sure that the teachers have the vaccine so that they can be there, because, we can send the kids back to school, but if they have no teachers, then it's not going to make any sense to send them back to school.
Correct.
So I hope that that we can get that. We haven't heard from Russell. Is Russell?
Russell's here. We edited it a little bit this morning and sent it up to your office. So.
Okay. Well, I thought check with Natalie, and maybe she has it, or Teresa has it right now. And if we do, let's get about 7 or 8 copies of that. But I just think we need to really push or make every effort we can to get these teachers. And in talking with both Marcelo as well as Kent, and I'll talk about it on our Wednesday call with the cities and the superintendents, I would recommend that any organization that is in line to get the vaccines begin within itself to prioritize, because obviously the younger ones are probably going to be much better to ward off COVID than some of maybe the old folks like me. And fortunately, I don't have the underlying health conditions, knock on wood, but I think I would begin to, within your organization, work through some sort of a prioritization so that if we're able to get some to the schools, or if your organization is able to get some, that you have at least already gone through that process and don't have to begin the process at the time that you're notified that, that issue exists. So again, thank you for this update.
Sure thing.
Judge Whitley, if I may, I want to join you in thanking Rick Merrill for being a part of the solution of the problem of JPS being left off of the initial list of hospitals to receive a distribution of the vaccine. But in addition to Rick Merrill, I'd like to thank our entire legislative delegation, who, as soon as they were made aware of the problem, they mobilized and started throwing elbows down in Austin to make sure that something happened that created a solution for the most vulnerable populations in Tarrant County. And those are the ones served by JPS Health Network. Finally, thanks go to Robert Early, the CEO of JPS. who entered the fight early. Early. Early was early. And never let up until there was a solution that benefited Tarrant County. This is the way we do things in Tarrant County. We work together and we try to bring about solutions that benefit the people that we serve. And Judge, I join you and Dr. Scribner and Dr. Cavazos and all the other superintendents in Tarrant County in asking the governor that they consider teachers to be among the indispensable workers who need to be first in line for vaccine, and I will gladly join you in signing this letter.
Chairman, make sure that
Thank you,
letter
Judge.
also gets communicated to Commissioner Johnson. Thank you, Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, Vinny.
Vinny, one other thing I guess I want to, yesterday on a call that I was a part of, there was conversations of the fact, again, the flu has been significantly down. Parkland Hospital indicated they do not have a single hospital patient right now with the flu. And I think one of the other hospitals around the state indicated the same. What are we seeing? Do you know what we're seeing as far as the flu?
So we're not seeing a lot of hospitalizations, but the activity is picking up. Oops, sorry, if I could go the other way. Could you get me back to the COVID-like illness slide, please? So I do have a line there. So it's above our baseline. Seasonally, we expect that to be going higher, the blue line. But it's not, picking up like we've seen in the years past. Again, a reminder, though, it does sort of pick up in December, so we're right there where flu activity does pick up. But we do expect this season to be mild for several reasons. First, local factors. People rushed out and got the flu vaccine. So we have better participation on the flu vaccine this year in Tarrant County than we've ever seen. And of course, our county, efforts were expounded by y'all's help. We got a lot of free vaccine available, so there's no excuse, there's no barrier to get the flu vaccine, so that's good news. Secondly, we know that there's a lot of people who still are wearing masks and socially distancing, so that is helping with the spread of flu as well. But the second factor, which is a global factor, we did see a milder season in the southern hemisphere. And, so their winter is when we have summer. And then now that we have winter, usually that circulates around the globe, right? So we came into a weaker flu season, which is good news. We didn't want a strong flu season to have to contend with while we have COVID. So all of those factors are working well in our favor for flu. That's why the numbers are low. But that doesn't mean we give up the fight. There are people in the community that still haven't taken their flu shot. They need to take their flu shot because we don't want to risk anything with the flu. It starts somewhere in December, peaks in February. So all the flu season is ahead of us. So we don't want to lower our guard. Take your flu shot. Do all these things that we've been saying because they work for the flu as well.
Vinny, is there any concern about the availability of the high-dose vaccine for the flu?
There was in the beginning. Okay. I know that there were some manufacturing delays and people were short. I have not heard from our medical partners or other partners that issue has remained. Okay. And I know that when the county helped us buy 17,000 doses, between us and JPS, we got 5,000 doses of high-dose flu. I think we're going to have some left over. So if anybody needs high-dose flu shot, talk to Public Health, talk to JPS or the federally qualified health centers. We've got plenty of doses. And again, if you're uninsured, that's no cost to anybody. If you're insured, we'll take the insurance.
Okay. Yeah, I know you're going to tell me this, and I'm going to think about it. CLI, COVID-like illness, ILI.
Influenza-like illness.
Okay.
So these are what we call syndromic surveillance indicators. So there's not an actual test that is being run at the point of care. They're more based on symptom. They're syndrome based. I think we've explained this in the past. The way syndromic surveillance works is, okay, you've got a pool of water that's getting warm, you dip your toe, okay, there's a problem, right? I mean, that's all it's telling you. It's an early indicator. This is at the point of entry in an ER setting. They give their, what are you here for? And it's based on that. After that, all the diagnostics and other things take a while, but this data is helpful to understand syndromes.
Influenza-like illness.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Your Honor, are we agendized to adopt this letter?
Well, I'm assuming that this is under possible actions concerning activities associated with the coronavirus.
You can handle this under the Administrator's Office, item A1.
Okay.
So do I have a...
I move that we accept this letter as court policy and that we all sign it.
Motion is second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. So we need to redo this to have all 5 signatures on there and make it from the Commissioner's Court. Okay, Mr. Manius, what's next? Did y'all get a copy of this?
We'll bring the formal copy out before the end of the meeting.
Okay.
So, Your Honor, members.
Leslie, did y'all see it?
Yes.
Too bad. Who gave it to you?
Chamber gave it to me.
I was just kidding.
Okay, so we can go ahead and go to the administrators section, and we're going to start with, we do have audience participation forms. We also have participation forms for people who want to call in, Your Honor. And
okay, we'll begin with the, once I can find them. Okay, here we go. We'll begin with the call-ins.
Now, the young lady that we heard from.
Her name was Nicole.
Nicole McGowan.
Yes.
Okay.
First call will be for Rachel Polonsky. Rachel.
Yes.
This is Judge Whitley. We're at audience participation, and you had expressed an interest in making a comment. So we're at that point, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Judge Whitley. I just wanted to express how disappointed I was in the extension of the mask mandate. The current mask mandate defies all science, reality, and common sense. There is no scientific evidence whatsoever that masks are effective against the spread of COVID. Even my second grader can explain to you that our nose is designed to exhale waste gases out and away from our body and not to trap them up against our faces in a mask. Our noses are also meant to be a first line of defense against illness, as the tiny hairs in your nose collect dust, bacteria, and other toxins before they enter your body. Interfering with God's design for our bodies with no basis in science is dangerous and reckless. Commissioners, you may think that just because only 15, 20 people come and speak against COVID lockdowns and masks each Tuesday, that your opposition is small, but each of those people speaking before you are a voice representing hundreds, if not thousands of others in the community who feel the exact same way. We will not stay silent, and we will not back down. We value our religious freedom as well as our medical freedom. Eventually, the truth will come out about what a scam COVID is, and when it does, we may forgive, as Christ calls us to, but we will not forget the behavior of our elected officials. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rachel. Have a good day. Next is Ann Kaiser.
Hello.
Good morning, Ann. This is Judge Whitley, and we're at the audience participation time on our agenda. And you had indicated that you would like to make a comment. So you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. Today I would like to remind the court of Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution. All political power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. The faith of the people of Texas stands pledged to the preservation of a republican form of government and subject to this limitation only. They have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. For the past several months, a group of Tarrant County residents has attended this court's weekly meetings without fail to make it known that they want the countywide mask mandate rescinded. So far, their voices have been ignored. Those in positions of government leadership are not rulers who can issue proclamations on their own whim. They are the servants of we the people. Your power comes from us. Rescinding the mandate does not take away the ability of businesses and individuals to decide on their own if they want to enforce and wear masks. Even without this court's mandate, business and individuals will still have that freedom, as they should. Remove the mandate and respect the right of the people to decide for themselves how to manage their health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Have a good day.
You too.
Next is Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. This is Judge Whitley, and we're at the point of the agenda for audience participation. You had indicated you wish to address the court. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Whitley, I believe research is knowledge. I know you have stated many times you don't have time to research, so you only trust your advisors. I think it is important to look at all sides of scientific data from all sides before making public policy decisions. So since you only hear one side, I will continue to share the other side. An article, Horowitz, New Information on Airborne Transmission Demonstrates Why Masks Are Useless. The CDC admits what we have always known, that in addition to large droplets, there is tiny atomized particles of the virus that are emitted every time a person breathes or speaks, much less coughs or sneezes. These virons are so small, 1/20th the size of the common bacteria. While the CDC claims this is not the primary source of transmission, they need to protect the mask mandate. They conceded that in enclosed spaces where an infected individual had been present for a longer period of time, these aerosols can remain suspended for a while and travel more than 6 feet. While they downplay this form of transmission as uncommon, the reality of the past 6 months tells a different story. Masks have not worked to stop the spread anywhere. They have been mandated with full compliance. We have seen that in Tarrant County. Our numbers are completely skyrocketed, apparently. What this demonstrates is that the CDC's slow and reluctant revelation of the existence of SARS-CoV-2 airborne transmission is a lot more significant than they are willing to admit. Researchers from Harvard University, University of California, and University of Maryland warned of an urgent need to educate the public on the problem of microscopic suspended particles versus droplets and the actions needed to combat that mode of transmission. Researchers warn that there is a big distinction between much spotted droplets that are 100 micrometers and the microscopic particles that are usually 60 to 140 nanometers, or on average 0.1 micrometers. While droplets are tiny, they are still visible and fall to the ground. The virons, which are at least 1,000 times smaller, are only visible through scanning electron microscopes. The difference, according to the author, is enormous. Virus and droplets larger than 1,000 micrometers typically fall to the ground in seconds within 2 meters of the source and can spread like tiny cannonballs onto nearby individuals. Because of their limited travel range, physical distancing reduces exposures to these droplets. Virus and aerosol smaller than 100 micrometers can remain suspended in air for many seconds to hours. They are highly concentrated near and infected persons so they can infect people most easily in close proximity. In other words, because the virons of the coronavirus are roughly 100 nanometers, 1/10,000th of width of a hair, or 1/30th the size of a surgical mask filtration, surgical masks do not help. Cotton masks are really pathetic. The hydraulic diameter of cotton is roughly 200 microns, 1,429 times the size of the larger aerosols. If you were driving down a tunnel in a truck, the aerosol being the pickup, the tunnel would be 1.83 miles wide. So what is the solution? Top coronavirus advisor Scott Atlas, it's time to face the fear head on. We have no other choice. The mask and 6 feet rituals don't work. It's time to recognize that there is no reason to hide from the virus, nor do we have ability to do so anyway. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. Have a good day. Next is Janet Jackson.
Hello.
Good morning, Janet. This is Judge Whitley. We're at that point on the agenda for audience participation. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, Judge Whitley, since Thanksgiving, it was quite interesting to see that those who have called you a liar have absolutely been truth in their accusations of your behavior, because those people are standing in truth. You sat and lied and told, let your Tarrant County Health Department director say, we need to have virtual Thanksgiving. And you sat there and didn't say a word. And your daughters do not live with you. Immediate family is who lives under your roof. Your daughters and your son-in-law and your grandchildren do not live with you. And according to Benny Tenacia, your grandchildren are going to kill you. So I don't understand your hypocrisy, number one, and that the court sits there in jest and says, oh, you're not that honest. You're not that. You are continuing to use as a lie, and this is not anything different. This is 5G radiation poisoning. You know it, therefore you think you don't have to abide by the rules because you know exactly what is making people sick. You don't want to acknowledge it. You want to use COVID as a cover to continue the fraud funding, which is child trafficking. And yes, you act holier than thou. I really find it kind of quite interesting that Dan Patrick called you out when he's the one that wear a gold armband. It seems to me you're kind of like King Solomon's son. King Solomon's son sought counsel from people his age and then others. And when you seek counsel, you only seek counsel for those who align with your thought process. You don't listen to anybody else. You don't listen to the science. You don't listen to the people. We the people. Our government is for we the people, by the people, and you work for us. It is not the other way around. We do not work for you. You are elected to serve us. Your oath is to uphold the Constitution and defend it. You're not upholding the Constitution. You're not defending the Constitution. You're not protecting the Constitution.
Ms. Jackson. Thank you for your meeting. Next, we have in person, Sherrod Perry. Followed by Doug Hines, followed by Robert Bucher.
All right. Good morning. I have a just one page handout to give to all of you. So, thank you. I see the clock is started.
We'll go ahead and start it over here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Before I go over that form there, first of all, I want to make this clear. I am not your enemy. Okay. I have come at you a little bit, aggressive these last few weeks because it's really out of desperation. But I'm really not your enemy, okay? As even my shirt says, I'm here speaking out for freedom, okay? The freedom of all of us, all right? Including I will even say the freedom of your grandchildren, okay? That's why I speak out about what I'm saying. And one thing that I did want to talk about today was just about this whole spike in cases, because again, the narrative that we're hearing about the spike is that, not enough people have complied with the mask mandate. If more people would just wear the mask and stay at home and social distance, we wouldn't be having these spikes. But as I pointed out, we're seeing spikes basically worldwide, like almost all at once. We're seeing spikes everywhere in Europe and here and everywhere else. So did they all just not abide by these rules? Is everybody just not doing enough with the mask? Well, like I said, let me give you a different perspective on why cases might be spiking. So what I handed you here is, I just learned this is very recent. In Florida, they actually now going to require that when you take the PCR test, that you also, instead of just saying whether you're positive or negative, the result is going to include your cycle threshold score. And that's something that I've talked about in here with you all before, is that cycle threshold, basically, the higher that cycle threshold goes, the higher that number goes, the more likely that the result you're getting is a false positive. It makes the test more sensitive. So again, that is a key statistic. That makes the test more sensitive or less sensitive. So my question has always been, has that cycle threshold ever been changed at any point throughout this pandemic? Because if they have just turned up the dial on this test, then all of a sudden you're going to get a spike in positives. And again, we're calling these cases when if I test positive, I guess I'm a case now, even if I'm healthy. And again, I'm still trying to get clear on what a case is. A case is just a positive test, even though you're healthy. It used to be I thought a case meant that you were sick, but now a case can mean that you're healthy, but you tested positive. So the point is, if the test is critical to this, if that test is being dialed up and dialed down and dialed up and dialed down, then you can make cases go up, you can make cases go down. You can play around with the case. You can play around with these numbers all day. And if you have a political agenda in mind, which is to stoke fear, then there's the incentive to turn the dial up on that test. So I wanted to point that out as another option. And something else that I also can throw out there is, I'm running out of time, is that also there's a link between 5G wireless radiation, and there's studies to show that wireless radiation can cause symptoms such as shortness of breath, fever, dry cough, fatigue, and blood clotting. Okay, I just gave you five symptoms of electromagnetic radiation of like 5G wireless. Those are also symptoms, as we've heard, of COVID-19. So it's just a link that I wanted to throw out there as well.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Doug Hines, followed by Robert Bucher, followed by Don Martin.
Looks good. Commissioner Whitley, happy birthday. Commissioner Allen, welcome back live. Thanks for having us back again today. 2 weeks ago, many of us were here in person, on the phone, and through the write-ins, advising against extending the declaration of emergency, advising against putting in the COVID business mask mandate in for any more period of time beyond the end of November. None of that stuff happened. This commission has not listened to and still refuses to listen to the will of the people. And I don't know what to do about that, but I can tell you what we do have. What we have here in our constitutional republic is one thing to help get our people representing the will of the people, and that's our vote. That's all we have. And in America, and in this county, and in the state, there's only two parties you can vote for that makes any difference. One's the Democrats, one's the Republicans. Now, I got to hand it to the Democrats. They give you what they give you what they tell you they're going to give you. Abortion on demand, open borders, constant identity politics, climate change hoax, gun control, anti-Christianity, socialism. They're going to give you that. That's what they ask. That's what you're voting for. That's not what we vote for when we vote for Republicans. When we vote for Republicans, we vote for a conservative interpretation of the Constitution, private property rights, individual liberties, protection of religious liberties, and the whole gamut. That's what we do with Republicans. We're not getting the benefit of that bargain. We're voting today, understand that, and I voted for this election today, voted last time. That's what we're looking for, and we're not getting it here. We've got to change. We've got to do something. We've got to do something soon about this. All forms of government are a suppression of individual freedoms. It's a question of how much and what did we sign on for. In this country, we signed on. We, the people, we reserved our sovereignty and gave limited powers through the Constitution, reserving the Bill of Rights, our powers, not the tyrannical, not the authoritarian. That's not what we signed up for. So I just want to say this, that this commissioner has crushed, this commission, with the orders it's got out there, with the business mask mandate and the tyrant sitting down in Austin, who is a Republican in name only, as I'm going to suggest that there were Republicans on this commission are as well, is crushing our individual freedoms, crushing them. This should not be the case. This should be reversed. We recommend you do so right away. And I'll tell you what this has caused is an absolute righteous rebellion for those that do not stand for this tyranny. We're on the beachhead of freedom right now. People like us are on the beachhead of freedom fighting against this tyranny. We will continue to do so. Our motto is not safety first. Our motto is freedom first. That's what we stand for, freedom first. That's numero uno. So I just want to say, get rid of the mask mandate, business mask mandate in your case, get rid of the declaration, and return the power of freedom and liberty to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howes. Robert Bucher, followed by Don Martin, followed by Jody.
My name is Robert Bucher, and I'm glad to be back. So we've been doing this for 8 months, and we're still having cases rising. 8 months with the mask, and we're still rising. Common sense is out the door. We can see that. Every one of y'all keep letting him speak. None of y'all speak against him. Every one of y'all done that. Time and time again, I've been watching this for the last 2 weeks. You're looking at the face of recovery right now. Doom and gloom is out the door. I recovered. My son, who's a heart patient, recovered quicker than I did from the COVID. Oops. Sorry, Denasia, you're out the door too with that one. Now, here's what's funny about this. Has anybody seen a legislative call? Has anybody seen Abbott call for the legislation? No. So that makes all the GAs illegal. But the DA is going to let you believe that, even though y'all have gotten into it a couple times on camera. That's pretty funny, too. But also, you know, the whole mask for thee but not for me is pretty funny. What were you doing on August? No mask. Look at him. He done spread it all through iFly. Good for his family, but not good for us. This is your Judge Whitley up there. This is his family. That's okay, though. Don't worry about us common folk. Look at that. Where in the hell is this mask? Anybody see it? Nope. I mean, time and time again, I brought damning evidence. Fix has even been in this. Tom Waller has been in this. He's been in every picture that I've ever seen. Mona Puerte, Betsy Price, even Sheriff Wayborn has been in all these pictures, and y'all sit up there quietly letting him be a tyrant that he really is. It's a shame. Now, WFA reported and phrased from you, Mr. Whitley, said that, and this was a while back, Sunday's count included backlog cases and said at least 150 are from people who do not live in the county. So why we got 150 cases from people that don't even live in the county? Padding the numbers. You and Mr. Dene, y'all love the padding the numbers. And that's crazy. You would state that you would pull license from bars that violated the policy that has no legal standing. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 28. Renee needs to look it up. Apparently she only knows case law. But even case law, here, I'll give you some case law. Texas Constitution, Article 4, Section 8. Marbury versus Madison, uphold the Constitution. Necessary and proper clause, that even stood up for the Constitution. McCulloch versus Maryland, Marbury, I mean, I could go on and on about so much case law that makes all of this illegal. But y'all are going to keep trying to extend out. And I'm glad for those ones that are standing up against y'all, and they should continue to do so. Continue to do it. The Equal Protection Clause, no state should deny any person the equal protection of laws, including the Constitution. And I'll make sure that y'all know that. Each commissioner and county judge are biased. Your silence and truth shows that you're biased against those who are ADA qualified or who just want their freedom, which we should. There's been so many business casualties, and y'all could care less as long as y'all keep making $180,000 a year, which is exactly what that is. It's ridiculous. It's narcissism, selfishness involving a sense of entitlement. If you've ever been in psychology, you need to look up the ego, the superego, and the ID, and y'all fall into the ego.
Have a good day, sir.
Yes, sir.
Don Martin, followed by Jody Mueller.
Good morning, Judge. Happy birthday, by the way. Commissioners, thank you all for being here. So I normally prepare something and read stuff, but I understand that y'all really don't care what we have to say. You've shown that on the Zoom call we had with you last week. People tend to fall asleep while we're speaking, play on your phones. I've even seen you walk out when people are on the phone. But know this, an emergency does not remove our God-given, constitutionally protected rights. My beliefs and my rights are just as important as yours. Liberty is not negotiable, not in the U.S. But I'm not here to speak to y'all today. I'm here to speak to the people out there that I represent. The thousands of people that I speak to every day on social media because I'm not allowed to go outside or to the stores because I can't wear a mask. So I stay at home with my little boy who I will not send to public school because I'm not going to put him through that. He's here in the back room. If you want to go talk to him, he'll tell you how scared he is to see people with masks, just blank eyes staring at him. But this is to the citizens of Tarrant County. If you must wear a mask, fine. It's your right to do so. But it's my right not to. If you want to stay home, it's your right to do so. But you know what? I'm tired of staying home, and it's my right not to. If you want to take a vaccine that supposedly is 95% effective, you might want to do your research. But you know what? It's my right not to. And if you want to close down your business because they tell you you have to, fine, it's your right, but it's also my right not to. So for those of you that are out there, and I know that you're afraid to come speak in front of these people that don't give a crap about your feelings and your beliefs, it's okay. We will continue to fight for you. Join us at wethepeopletexas.com, and we will fight for your rights, and we will take over these tyrannical governments.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Jody Mueller.
somehow you knew my last name, and I didn't put it on that form, so.
You put it on many forms before.
No, I've never done it. During last week's Zoom call, you claimed it was a waste of time to talk about the mask as you were not going to do anything different, clearly showing it's more about control and to further the New World Order and 5G harm. The mere arrogance during that call was a clear violation, if you are a judge, of Judicial Canon 1, which states a judge should participate in establishing, maintaining, and enforcing high standards of conduct. Those standards were clearly disregarded, and anyone discussing their inability or unwillingness to comply due to religious reasons, medical or mental health issues, and or knowledge of fundamental rights to breathe freely and be in charge of their own health care were completely diminished by you, just like the forced vaccines will be in the future. Last week, you made not only local news, but national news as well, with your willful and intentional violations of Judicial Canon 2, which states avoiding impropriety and the appearance of impropriety in all judges' activities. A judge shall comply with the law and should act at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary. Even Lieutenant Governor Patrick called you arrogant and rogue on Fox News. Although your orders are not considered law, by you going on public radio show and stating you disagreed with the public health director regarding virtual Thanksgiving or any other ridiculously demeaning isolation campaigns is simply not true, and remaining silent when he promotes these types of action is being complicit. You most definitely have berated people like myself for having get-togethers with family and told us to limit these activities, yet you have not heeded your own suggestions and stated on a podcast a new definition of what an immediate family consists of, which further gives cause for concern as to your integrity. According to most dictionaries, and especially Black's Law Dictionary, immediate family does not include grandchildren. If you are allowed to claim 11 other people as your immediate family, then the residents like myself of Tarrant County, now either homeless or jobless because of these unlawful orders and shutdowns, should be able to list a whole host of individuals when they request food stamps, food pantry items, housing, or general assistance. You surely wouldn't wish to deprive them of providing for their immediate family after taking their income away, right? On your website, your statement reads, Tarrant County is an ideal place to live, work, and raise a family, and that you'll do the utmost to keep that wonderful quality of life we now have. Well, I moved here several years ago, and I personally lost my entire family for Title IV incentives, and I've lost my income, and have no way to buy any essential items. So I think you should change that statement. Lastly, you may think it's humorous to brag about renting a camper to use it as expensive porta potty, but most of us now have lost even anything or a pot to piss in.
That's the end of our comments. I would just want to make one statement. As I have said, there have been times when Vivian and I have disagreed. Public Health did issue a statement. My statement that same week was, I'm asking you to work with us in protecting our community. Please do those things that are necessary to protect your family. That was the statement that I made prior to Thanksgiving. So again, thank all of those who participated today. Mr. Manius, what's next?
Thank you, Your Honor. We can now move to the administrator section. And we're going to go to item A1 and ask Guidehouse to make their presentation. Rachel, are you there?
Let me ask
just a second, Rachel.
I had another audience participation. It was Nancy Groves, but it shows that I do not wish to address the court. And I'm making the assumption that that comment just got in here by mistake. If Nancy Groves is in here now or is in the back room and wishes to speak, please come forward at this point in time.
Her comments are attached.
Yeah, but we're not reading comments anymore.
Oh.
Your Honor, we received those and they are part of the minutes.
Yeah. What happens is comments come in by noon. They are included and sent out. And then put in the record so that everyone can read those if they would like.
I got it.
Okay, so we're going to now go to the administrator section, item A1. Rachel, if you're there, let's go ahead and start the presentation.
Okay, will do. Good afternoon, or good morning still, Judge and Commissioners. If we can advance to the project status slide, we'll get started. We'll begin with our recent activities. During the past 2 weeks, we provided updates on funding opportunities, including TEA and federal sources. For TEA, this assistance was direct to families and not to the county, so there's no role for the county there, but good to be aware of potential opportunities for related to education, and this funding was specifically for families with students who have disabilities. For the federal sources, we shared a memo from FEMA outlining anticipated federal funding sources for various stages of vaccine distribution and administration. We provided feedback on the CRF eligibility of various expenses, including county vaccine equipment, NGO construction expenses and vaccine equipment, county vaccine software, and NGO social distancing expenses. We also met with the county to discuss next steps for FEMA and the possibility of pursuing FEMA PA for vaccine-related expenses. We worked with the county to develop and deliver an office hours presentation to municipalities that are receiving county CRF funds on the key tasks for them to complete prior to December 30th. We shared updates with the county from Treasury OIG on additional guidance that was made available in their new FAQ. We completed training to support the county's review of applications of its rental assistance program. We've dedicated 2 team members to this task given the high volume of applications the county is working through this month and the need to get them reviewed prior to December 30th. We also met with the county to discuss next steps for the ILA distribution program and to draft the weekly newsletter. Our areas of discussion for today will be FEMA, pillars of focus, county grants update, and county spend update. Any questions on this slide before we move on? If not, we can move on to the FEMA slide, and I'll turn it over to my colleague Sean to give the update here.
Thanks, Rachel. Good morning, Commissioners and Judge. So a little update regarding the first FEMA PW. It's gone through TDM and FEMA Region 6's review and is now with FEMA Department of Homeland Security because these projects, 75% federal cost share is over $1 million. Basically, there's a few additional review queues that are enacted as a result of that, but everything is still moving along accordingly thus far with PW1. Regarding PW2, as it's stated on there, the decision was made to not pursue a second project at this point in time, but we are continuing to look at guidance that's coming in regarding costs associated with vaccines being reimbursable through PA process and formulating a PW associated with that. But at this point in time, that's the FEMA update.
Any questions on FEMA before we move on?
I would like to point out that on the presentation that as it relates to FEMA PA, that as we go through the vaccine aspect of COVID, that any costs that we incur there, that we will try to go ahead and also submit that to FEMA. It's still been very slow, but that will be an alternate funding source, a future funding source if necessary. Okay, Rachel, go ahead and continue.
Moving on to slide 3. This slide captures the high-level updates from the county's CRF programming. There have not been any changes to this slide from last week, but we wanted to note that the rental assistance program will close tomorrow on December 9th, the last day for applications. And the small business assistance program, they've been working through nearly all of the applications, and they expect to be complete all of their awards soon, I believe next week. Any questions here before we move on? Okay, so we can move on to the grant slide. So here we have an overview of the county's grants. There have not been any changes to the slide from last week. The total amount of county grants received and expected to be received remains $235 million. We can move on to the expense slide. So continuing with our new format, in the top table here, we've broken out spending by CRF pillar. Obligated here refers to both invoices and encumbered expenditures. And social services includes both rental assistance and NGO assistance. As you can see from the obligated subtotal for CRF, the county has invoiced and encumbered about $132 million in eligible expenditures. This includes expenses the county is seeking reimbursement from FEMA. Once that first PW has been finalized, we'll create an additional table below to break out those expenses. In the plan column, we know that county is on track to spend all of the remaining $77.6 million in CRF funds by December 30th. And you see on the right table there, or the right breakout there, those are the activities that the county will be pursuing to expend all of these funds by the required deadline. Moving down to the multiple grants, this includes all of the grants listed on the previous slide except for CRF. The county has spent about $9 million so far, and it's on track to spend the remainder by those required deadlines. And note that not all of these grants require the county to spend down by December 30th. There are some that extend past 2021. And finally, on the total line, you'll see the $235 million in county grant revenue with a total obligated amount of $141 million and an amount to be spent of $93.9 million. Any questions on this slide before we stop? If not, we can move to our final slide and wrap up. This slide repeats much of the information from the previous ones, so I won't go into too many details here. Just to highlight that the primary difference is that this includes FEMA PA as an anticipated revenue source, which we did not include in the previous one, as that revenue has not yet been finalized. Any questions on this slide or on our presentation overall?
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Stephen.
So what we'd like to do now is to give you an update, our weekly status update. It has changed over the last 2 weeks. And then we'd like to have a very brief conversation of how we move forward in closing out the expenditures by the end of December. So we'll start first with the small business assistance. Today on the claims register, we are asking you to approve 314 additional grants, which has a total of $2.47 million. When you look at those amounts and add it into the past amounts, we have issued 2,837 business grants for a total amount of $22,717,000. We still have 78 applications that are in the auditor's office, and it's the auditor's office intent and our intent to have them on next week's agenda, the 15th, and therefore we will have completed and successfully completed the second round of the small business assistance. When we look at the testing sites, I think this is something that several of you have commented on in the last several weeks. For the week of November 30th through December 6th, we tested 23,142 individuals or tests in our combined test sites, which we partner with, first of all, standalone Tarrant County, and then we partner also with TDEM, Texas Department of Emergency Management, and also the city of Fort Worth in some of their testing activity. So you can tell that the number of people that we're testing has increased substantially. I think this is the first time that we've gotten over 20,000 in a week, and those numbers continue to go up. So let's talk a little bit about rental assistance. Rachel pointed out that the portal will be closed after tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the last day that we accept applications. The reason for tomorrow is because that should cover also the month of December. We have 727 that we have approved and received and who have received payment of about $2.9 million, almost $3 million. We have 369 also that are pending for an additional $388,000. I want to come back to that in just a second, okay? Because I know that's something that the court has been very interested in, and we want to talk about some strategies moving forward. So when we talk about the non-governmental assistance program, you see on your report that was sent to you this morning that we've awarded 81 grants for $8.2 million. So we're pretty much in the zone of where we anticipated being. I think we thought we would spend up to $10 million in that particular area. So on our municipal programs, our partners, with the 39 cities, you might remember that we did close to $62 million to those cities. Russell and his team have been working to ensure that all of that money is spent. Russell, were you at about 92, 93%, or are we at a higher number now?
After December 15th, we'll be near 95%.
Okay, so by December 15th, by next week, we will have, our partners will have expended 95% of the monies that we have given them. We're also going out into the field with some of the smaller cities to make sure that they can document the expenditures and that they can receive as much money as they possibly can on that. The bigger cities didn't have that difficulty because they have a larger staff to work through it, but we're helping the smaller cities so we can accomplish that. On the chambers, this initial chambers where we assisted 10 chambers, we gave them, I believe, $10,000 to assist us. But the second round on the chambers, we have 24 chambers that are in the county. 17 actually applied for monies, and we will bring those to you next week. That's going to be approximately $446,000 that we're giving the chambers on the second round.
You said that was 17 chambers?
17, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And we believe that 16 of the 17 will qualify. I will tell you that as it relates to the chambers, we reached out to each and every one of them. And so we made sure that they were aware that they could apply, what the documentation needed to be. 7 simply did not apply. They decided not to. And out of the 17 that did apply, we have one chamber that is not going to, it doesn't have any expenditures. It's a very small chamber. So we will bring you that list and our recommendations as it relates to that next week. That was the part of the chamber where we would pay up to $50,000 to the chambers. And so I think that staff, both in our office and in the auditor's office, have done a very good job on bringing a lot of this to fruition. And so let's talk a little bit about the rental assistance. As I said, we have our rental assistance program is going to officially end tomorrow, and that should give us some time to work through the applications that we have. We still have a large number of applications, and to get those payments out and on the agenda by the 29th of this month. That way we know we can use COVID funds to pay for that. There are going to be rental applications that we will not be able to work through by then, simply because of the volume. It is our intent, and the court has already approved this, to utilize county funds to make those payments. And if we do that, that will be of a lesser standard than the COVID funds. But we're working with the auditor's office. I believe we have, Renee, we say in 8 days after tomorrow or something, someday there's going to be a cutoff that we want to work everything through that we can and then sweep the other so that we don't leave anyone out. It's important that, in my opinion, it's important that we wait till the very end until we bring in the county dollars. We'll have adequate numbers to do that. That's why we're playing this, or we're managing this so that we get to the very end before we have to use county dollars for several reasons. As you probably know, and I would hope we can maybe get some comments from the court also on this. Currently in Congress, there is a bipartisan bill that to provide additional pandemic relief. And there's different levels as far as what the monies will be spent for. While we don't know exactly the timeline that we may see some action from the court, from the Congress, we do know this. We know that it appears that the number that bipartisan group is looking at in both the House and the Senate is about $908 billion. There's monies that are there for training. For testing, excuse me. There's going to be monies for unemployment-related expenses and business stimulus. Our understanding is that Congress has to pass a budget bill by the 11th of this month. And they are trying, Congress is trying to include in that budget bill the $908 billion. However, it may be that they will not hit the 12/11 date, and they're going to have to get a continuing resolution. That continuing resolution is supposed to be expected to be for 1 week. So hopefully we'll have information from for either next week because of the 11th, or we'll know if it's going to be included in the 18th whenever they pass that budget bill. It's good to see Congress, approaching this in a bipartisan way. I understand the administration is supportive of it also, and so we're hoping that there'll be additional funds that will be available that we can utilize through this congressional legislation. Part of this effort also is, and I'm assuming that you all have seen the messages and the emails from the National Association of Counties that they are trying to see if they can get some type of congressional action that will extend the 12/30 deadline. And so that will give us a little more flexibility as we move forward. So when you see us moving closer and closer to the December 30th date, I can guarantee you this: we're going to spend every dollar as it relates to the monies that we receive through the CRF, okay, because we already have those expenditures. We want to push as much of that into the CRF. That will give this Commissioner's Court greater flexibility as we move into 2021. What we're also saying is that, and you all have already taken action on it and given us the authority to do that, those expenses, legitimate expenses that are not included, that we cannot capture through CRF because of the workload, we are going to capture that through general revenue funds of the county. So that's where we are. The entire team, your staffs, our staffs, budget office, auditor's office, district attorney's office, we're all working very hard to make sure that this comes to fruition. And of course, obviously public health too. So we're trying to do the best we can. I think we're going to be successful.
Mr. Manius.
Yes, sir.
As it stands right now, how much do you forecast that we will return to the Department of Treasury after December 30th because we have been unable to spend the money?
We will return not a dime because we have already enough expenditures to cover all of the part of the $209 million that this county received.
We're not sending any money back.
And I will tell you, we have vetted this thing every week to make sure that those are legitimate expenses, and guidehouses in concurrence, the auditor's office is in concurrence, and we feel very comfortable we are not going to spend or not send a dime back. In fact, our cost will be greater than the amount of money we received.
I still predict that in January, February, March, the first quarter of 2021, we're going to see an explosion of evictions. And at that point, we will have no federal dollars to help us mitigate that problem that will result in an explosion of homelessness in our community. What are we going to do, Mr. Manius?
So with the dollar, well, first of all, the items that it appears will be funded in the 908, if that's approved by Congress, will give us additional rental assistance money. Second of all, we're understanding, and of course it's not happening until it happens, that type of deal, but there will be another declaration of a moratorium. We are working with our JPs. We have done a substantial amount of increased publicity. We have reached out to the apartment complexes. We believe that we've pretty much saturated the area as far as telling people we are here to help you, and telling the apartment managers and owners that there is a vehicle by which you can be compensated for lost revenue because of lack of the payment of rent. So I do think that we will have the ability to address all of that. And the numbers that I'm seeing, I believe that if we have to, we don't get any assistance from the federal government, which I think we are going to get assistance, that we will be using county dollars to help mitigate that issue so that we can make people whole, or at least to a point where that there are no evictions or very few evictions. Commissioner, we are on top of this and working it every day. And I wish we could have done something a little different, a little faster. But quite frankly, there was this belief that if I don't have to pay my rent now because they can't evict me, that I'm not going to have to pay it in the future. And that's simply not true.
No, it's not true. And I think it's important that you point out that although we will be using money from the county's general fund to fund these additional rental expenses, this is money that we have been reimbursed by the CARES Act for expenses that we have incurred.
That's correct.
During the pandemic. It's not typical general fund revenue.
That's correct. The one thing also is that, and Guidehouse pointed it out, when you look at programs, grant programs and monies that we've received that are not in the CRF category, CDBG, homelessness, things such as this, that we have an amount of money in those grant categories also that we do not have to spend by the end of December. And what's important about that is that the City of Fort Worth received funds, Tarrant County received funds, and the City of Arlington received funds also. So there are some funding sources that we can all bring together in a collaborative effort to try to make sure that we don't do a significant amount of evictions.
One of the things that I would just stress to all of us is that,
Bless you.
Thank you. If the package passes, which I think we will get the next stimulus package, there's still a lot of debate as to whether the money is all going to the state or is it coming out to counties and cities. Last time we got it, only 12 counties in Texas and 6 cities. We know that NACO pushed to try to get that number or the population bracket way down, if a bracket at all. But I will tell you there are a couple of bills. The HEROES bill gives it out to populations of any size, direct to the cities, direct to the counties. The SMART bill gives it to the state. So right now, it is extremely important.
That bill is misnamed.
There's a lot of stuff misnamed. But what I would just say is we need to be communicating with our Congress, both in the House and in the Senate, and tell them how critical it is that that money come to us. Because if it goes to the state, we won't see anything for sure until probably February or March. And there's still a lot of money sitting in Austin. And so I cannot stress the importance. And I would say within the next, because December the 11th is when they're supposed to pass the continuing resolution. And just on the happenstance that might also be the day, what I'm saying is, whatever y'all decide to distribute, but distribute it to us straight to the cities and to the counties and not by way of the capital. And I just cannot stress that enough, because otherwise we're going to end up with nothing come January the 1st.
That's absolutely right.
When we need the money to be helping people do it.
I just want to say to Mr. Maynes that I accept it as an article of faith that y'all are on top of this situation, because you tell me you're on top of it. And let's just pray that it all comes out right.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll just add that obviously I share the concerns that have been shared by my colleagues. I do have confidence in the fact that we won't be giving any dollars back. Certainly by the indication of how hard that I've seen the work in getting these programs out to folks and the response that we've seen. And I guess more immediately would be for the rental assistance program and that increased outreach efforts. I will say, even at the risk of speaking too prematurely about what the next package might look like, but that needs to now become our norm of how we are doing outreach to the residents of our county. Really, we need to take every avenue and opportunity that we have, especially given that obviously this pandemic is affecting every single person and affecting folks who are unfamiliar with some of the traditional benefits or resources. I think one thing that keeps me up at night is knowing that we have resources and that people don't know about it. And yes, there is personal responsibility and folks should be doing research to see, okay, what's out there that can help me. But obviously it's a tenet of government, and when the resources are there, we need to make sure that people know about it. And so I know everyone's been working really hard on that. I certainly have heard from constituents that they feel like they're seeing, information about our COVID relief efforts now everywhere they turn, which is exactly what we need to hear them say. And of course, we need to make sure moving forward that we continue to stand up programs that are accessible to folks. And I know we've talked so much about that, needing to strike that delicate balance of abiding by the Treasury guidance and our advice from audit and from Guidehouse, but then also making sure that people are going through enough, and so our programs don't need to be so hard to get through that people aren't able to be helped. So I, again, just want to thank everybody for the work that's been done thus far. Obviously, we have a long ways to go. COVID's going to be here with us, or the effects of it for sure, for many years. A couple questions on this most updated report, and it may be here and I just don't see it, but a few weeks ago I had asked to see the number of businesses that had applied for the Small Business Assistance Grant the first time, but then did not get it, and maybe the second time that they did. Do we have that number? No? Okay.
We'll have that to you this week.
Okay, very good. And then I understood, GK, what you were saying about the, we won't know until we know in terms of either the extension of the December 30 deadline. What does that mean for us in our testing sites and our ability to continue testing?
So let's talk about testing.
Okay.
Okay. So we've been working with TETM because the dollars the monies that TETM has available to test don't necessarily end on December 30th. And so we have reached out. Emergency management has talked with them as recent as yesterday to make a determination on two things. Are they going to continue their testing sites that they help us with and what they're doing here in Tarrant County after the 30th? And also, if they would consider picking up some of the costs on our testing sites that they're not currently participating in. And they seem optimistic. Of course, they have not received definitive approval from Austin, but they are pushing to at least continue their sites. So when you look at the county's testing sites, we have asked public health and facilities to get together with budget to come up with a cost of maintaining those sites, at least for 30 days. And my goal is not to go out any farther than 30 days at a time. We can always come back and do an additional 30 days. And I know that we are finalizing those costs, and we have 2 more meetings this year. And if it gets to the point that we don't believe that there's going to be any assistance from Washington, then we're going to come and ask you to fund those at least on a 30-day period. The reason we don't have that now is because we're really watching this 908 and to see exactly where that is going to land, if it lands at all. And that, in my opinion, or in my mind, is going to be a point where that there'll be, then we need to make some decisions. I say we, the Commissioners Court. Hopefully we'll see it on the 11th. Judge, you pointed that out, or Commissioner Brooks, you might have pointed that out. We believe that we'll see it either the 11th or the 18th. That will still give us our last meeting on the 29th to make some decisions. We're prepping all of our partners who we've contracted with to tell them that there may be an extension. And so we want to have everything set so that we can take action and continue our efforts.
Oh, very good. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Anything else, Mr. Wayne?
No, Your Honor. We can now move to item.
Let me just ask one thing. I would like for your group to look at some sort of a policy regarding countywide text messages that might go out. I understand that there are times, tornado, something along the weather, that we might need to blast out a text message. But if it's something that is not of immediate danger, I would like for the court to have an opportunity to at least be aware, one, that it's going out, and two, have had a chance to at least read the content before that goes out. So if you would prepare a policy that we could look at and potentially approve in the future, I appreciate it.
We'll make sure that happens, Judge.
Thank you.
Members of the court, on items 2, 3, 4, and 5, Ms. Camareno is going to make those presentations.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Item 2 is requesting approval from the court of the First Amendment to the agreement for the distribution of CARES Act funds with the Rendon Volunteer Fire Department. That amendment provides funding in the amount of $289,222.78.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, item 3 is a request for approval of the First Amendment to the agreement for the distribution of CARES Act funds with Eagle Mountain Volunteer Fire Department. That amendment provides funding in the amount of $258,000.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item 4, we are requesting approval of an agreement with the Fort Worth Opera for the distribution of coronavirus relief funds as part of the NGO assistance program. That agreement will provide funding in the amount of $34,759.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and item number 5, we're requesting approval of an agreement with Mental Health Connection of Tarrant County for the distribution of coronavirus relief funds as part of the NGO Assistance Program. This agreement will provide funding in the amount of $11,650.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, and we're going to take about a 10-minute recess
Thank you.
here. Blink at me, Megan. Tell me you're on.
We're ready. We're on. We're on.
Okay. What's next? I guess it would be the auditor's office. Ms. Tidwell.
We have one item for the court's consideration, and that is to receive and file the auditor's report for the Sheriff's Office fiscal year end 2020, Chapter 59 forfeited report by law enforcement agency.
Move to receive and file.
Second. We have a motion and a second to receive and file. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I hope. Well, I didn't look up there, so I just assumed that it did.
Very good.
Facilities management. Come on down. Want more money, huh?
Yes, I do.
Hi, Trace.
Good afternoon. It's good to see y'all. We have one item for your consideration, approval of amendment number 4 to the HDR Architecture Incorporated contract for architectural and engineering services related to the Juvenile Center project included in the 2006 Capital Improvement Program.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the background.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Hey, Ange.
Vinny's outside, so take it away, GK.
Members, if we can go to Public Health, item G1, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve Public Health Medicaid 1115 waiver intergovernmental transfer, documentation or demonstration year DY9, payment number 2 to the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, and authorize the county auditor to release the funds prior to appearing on the claims register.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, on item number 2, we're requesting that the court approve the submittal of an application to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention notice of funding opportunity as it relates to increasing the use of HIV pre-exposure in an event. Thank you. Prophylactics in an error of choice by the Tarrant County Public Health Department.
Move for approval before he gets any deeper, would you? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We all need a little help from our friends sometimes. We can go to
Let's
item
keep
number.
it moving.
And we can go to item number 3. We're seeking approval of an ILA between Tarrant County and MedStar as it relates to the mobile health care system for the provision of equipment needed for the COVID-19 vaccine storage.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And then finally, members of the court, item number 4, we're requesting that the court approve a work order under project 1160094 with eClinic Works for business analytics in relation to the implementation of a cloud-based electronic medical records and practice system to be used by the health department to support the COVID-19 mass immunization effort.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, members of the court.
Come on down, interim purchasing agent.
Melissa.
Hi.
Hello. Good afternoon. We have 4 items for your consideration this morning. The first is an award recommendation for bid number 2021-039, sale of recycled paper for 60+ tons of assorted office paper and 35+ tons of OCC cardboard for facilities management, awarding to the highest bidders Evergreen Fiber Sales for sorted office paper and Texas Recycling for the OCC cardboard.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The second item is also an award recommendation for bid number 2020-216, annual contract for pickup trucks, vans, and utility vehicles, awarding to the primary vendors as shown in your court communication per unit price.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The third item is regarding bid number 2021-012, annual contract for technical gear for the Sheriff's Office. We're recommending rejection of all bids and asking for permission to rebid with revised specifications.
Move for approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And the fourth and final item is regarding bid number 2021-016. This is an annual contract for cab and chassis trucks with liquid asphalt hydrostatic distributors for all precincts. We're recommending, again, rejection of all bids and permission to rebid with revised specifications.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments? I'm kind of glad Jack wasn't here today because otherwise I'd have been getting all kinds of grief from what happened to the my LSU Tigers.
Your Honor, I've got appointments that have backed up on me, so bear with me. For the Human Services Advisory Committee, appointments for an additional term. Beth Noah from Precinct 1, Marcus Rockwell, Precinct 1, Patrick Johnson, Precinct 2, Lynn Scott, Precinct 2, James Fletcher, Precinct 3, Daniel Clark, Precinct 3, and Connie Nahuliwa, Precinct 4. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And to various City of Fort Worth TIF boards. TIF number 3, downtown, Roy Charles Brooks. TIF number 8, Lancaster TIF, Jeanette Martinez. TIF number 12, the Eastbury Renaissance, Roderick Miles. TIF number 13, the Woodhaven TIF, Roderick Miles. And TIF number 14, Trinity Lakes, Roderick Miles. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay. You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Anything else, Mr. Manion?
Not at this time, Your Honor, not this morning.
Then we'll recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempt under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. So, we don't Jacob, JD, or Devin. I'll give her about 5 seconds. Come on. Having returned from our closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time, we are adjourned.
Okay.
She'd already blinked at me.